flood the land, making life possible. And where men hope their souls will remain in the rice fields forever, long after death. A world where temples are made of gold, where monks wear robes in joyful colors and chant endless litanies whose sound carries prayers off to the great beyond. Where nature is so powerful that it has swallowed an entire empire, temples and palaces and all. There is a city where turmoil and haste intermix with the most ancient of traditions, where hospitals use medicinal plants and natural remedies to treat illnesses. And there is a river, the Mekong, which flows with the blood that has given life to all the civilizations of Indochina. This place, seemingly born of legend, is called Vietnam. Vietnam is located on the eastern edge of Southeast Asia. It is here that the Mekong River empties into the South China Sea. As it enters Vietnam, the Mekong River divides into 9 separate branches. Legend has it that these are the 9 tails of a dragon. For locals, they define their landscape, their way of life, and their culture. These 9 branches, and the thousands of tiny channels that they divide into, make up the Mekong Delta, an area of 40,000 square kilometers that makes South Vietnam the country of water. Between the river and the jungle, man has made a place for himself, making the most of every single square meter of solid land, and even taking over the surface of the river. The result is a series of amphibious cities, the best example of which is Canto, with its floating market. A clot of boats in all sizes forms a kind of enormous raft consisting of thousands of pieces. In Canto, there are no permanent stalls nor regular hours, and money isn't nearly as valuable as the trust held between traders. This point on the river is South Vietnam's central market. From here, merchandise is distributed to the many small villages along the delta. There is no shortage of work for boat owners here. The only sure way of getting around the delta year-round is on the river. During the rainy season, or when the river rises, the roads simply disappear. These workshops make bicycles, motorcycles, cars, and buses. All modes of river transport are made of wood, and the only factors that differentiate them are size and price. But in Canto, there is also life on solid ground. The market is a meeting point between water and asphalt, between the river's packed channels and the clashing colors of the city's winding streets. In the half-light created by tin awnings and roofs, merchandise spills out of the tiny stalls, creating a chaotic universe of the colors and smells that are the very image of life in Vietnam. Currently, traditional fishing techniques are used only for private consumption. Families that make their living selling fish have transformed their homes into authentic fish farms. The river provides the water and raw materials used to produce fish feed in these noisy mixing machines. Underneath the wooden porches and piers, a system feeds the fish until they are ready for consumption. Each year, the river produces 1.5 million tons of fish, which include 1,200 species. But not all of them end up in the same place. Each day, fish are separated by species and size. The fishing industry is subject to the whims of supply and demand, which is causing a dangerous imbalance in the river's ecosystem. While the best-selling fish are bred by the millions, others, like catfish and Irrawaddy dolphin, are on the brink of extinction. Each member of the family plays a role in the business. Grandparents, children, and grandchildren work side by side, first at home and then in the market, where they sell each fish caught beneath their house. Women are charged with manning the stalls, while youngsters are responsible for restocking the merchandise, coming and going as needed. The quantity of fish caught and classified is steep, but so is the competition. Even a full day of work at the market doesn't result in much profit. Actually, all this commercial activity contributes to nothing more than a subsistence economy. In exchange for just a handful of dollars, these women spend all day soaking wet in terribly dim conditions. At the end of the day, the family returns home, only to start all over again. Channels packed with boats, where thousands of families move in search of something to buy or sell. Once home, they gather round the television, keeping one eye on the source of their livelihood. Night settles over the Mekong, but the river never sleeps. On its way to the flatlands in southern Vietnam, the Mekong River travels 4,350 kilometers. It begins in the Himalayas, where its current is violent and impetuous. As the river approaches the South China Sea, the current weakens, reflecting the local way of life and the slow and constant cycle of the rice harvest. Thousands of mass transport boats move along these channels daily, connecting an infinite number of small villages which are unreachable by road. This is the main source of income in Indochina. These waters irrigate fields that produce enough food for 90 million people. The Mekong is also an extremely important means of cultural interchange. Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, and Hinduism, the spiritual foundation for all of Southeast Asia, were all able to enter these lands thanks to the river. Perhaps this is why all of the civilizations that have inhabited the Mekong Delta have called this river a gift from the gods. Beyond the reach of the river lies the jungle, and on the land in between, man has made the most of the areas that are flooded each year by the monsoons, using them for rice paddies. Rice has always been grown in Vietnam, but the harvest was never enough to feed the entire population until it became possible to divide the Mekong Delta into cultivated plots. Today, this is the second largest exporter in the world, thanks to the development of intensive modern farming methods. The climate allows for 3 yearly harvests, although the crops must be rotated to ensure the soil's fertility. Small landowners band together and take turns planting so that there is always work and income. This activity, the result of modern planning, makes it possible for Vietnam's most traditional scene to form part of the landscape year-round. %80 of Vietnam's population is involved in the rice industry. Planting crops, processing the grain, storage, and transport are just a few of the activities tied to the rice paddies. In spite of improvements, the economic situation among rural populations continues to be precarious. A flood or an epidemic takes only a few days to erase the hard-won benefits of years of hard labor. Thanks to new agricultural methods, the use of farming machinery is more and more common. New varieties of rice that are more resistant and productive are also being planted. But there is still much to be done before poverty can be driven out of the rice fields for good. Events from recent history make life in the rice paddies even more difficult. Following decades of war, Vietnam, Laos, and especially Cambodia are still littered with mines. Luckily, numerous organizations are working to banish death from the rice fields. Perhaps in the near future, the last anti-personnel mine in Southeast Asia will disappear. In 1859, the naturalist Henri Mouot was hiking through the jungles of Cambodia on the trail of a butterfly. What he found was one of the most perfect cities ever built. Hidden in the dense jungle was Angkor, the capital of the Khmer Empire, built on the shores of Tonle Sap Lake. Angkor was the capital of a great empire that dominated all of Southeast Asia. The only surviving element from its most splendid era is a description which states that the noblemen were born on gold litters. When Angkor fell to the Siamese in 1432, the king and his court fled, leaving the forest to reclaim the ruins. All wooden structures and writings disappeared as they fell victim to the climate and the insects. In an area of more than 600 square kilometers, more than 100 abandoned buildings remained. Among the most important were Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom, the city's temple and palace. The temple, built by Emperor Suryavarman II, is dedicated to the goddess Vishnu. This is the perfect expression of Khmer architecture. The walls feature bas-reliefs, which have allowed historians to establish a chronology for the vanished empire. They have also been able to study its mythology and social hierarchy, and the daily routine of the city's inhabitants. Angkor Wat, the temple, is built with a square layout. Its 7 towers are a symbol of the Hindu heaven. The walls are adorned with apsaras, sacred nymphs that seduce those mortals whose power was a threat to the gods. Perhaps when the city's rulers came to control the destiny of millions of men, it was the apsaras who were charged with making Angkor disappear into the furthest reaches of the jungle. Traditional medicine is quite widespread in Vietnam. In the tiny town of Dai Trang alone, there are 6 small hospitals like this one, where only natural products are used. These charitable institutions depend on Buddhist pagodas, where all doctors and pharmacists are volunteers. Ancient knowledge of an entire culture is archived here. A description of each malady is accompanied by the substances needed to cure it. Nurses prepare and package a variety of herbal mixtures that are brewed and ingested as hot tea. All consultations and remedies are free of charge. Patients pay only what they can afford, and they often volunteer at the hospital, helping with various maintenance chores. More than 100 types of herbs are gathered on the patio. 2B for fever, Chan Chin for pain, Oro for insect bites. Some of the herbs come from China or Cambodia, but those who live close to the hospital often grow them in their own gardens, well aware of the importance of the plants. The number of medicinal plants used and stored in these clinics is enormous, reflecting the enormous demand. Nearly everyone in the Mekong Delta seeks treatment at this kind of hospital. When medicinal teas are not enough, traditional Vietnamese acupuncture is the next step. This ancient technique has gained quite a reputation the world over. Humble farmers are treated alongside wealthy Vietnamese citizens, residents of Australia or the United States. All are considered equals, and each one pays only what he can. In this way, the contributions made by the more fortunate patients guarantee that the poor will be well cared for, and that the Buddhist pagodas will be kept up. Traditional remedies are used by nearly everyone, and it is the elders in each home who take it upon themselves to cure their family members. These ancient techniques, aimed at curing all kinds of illnesses, have been around for hundreds of years. These glass containers are used to treat high fevers. They are applied to the back and used like suction cups. According to popular belief, this brings the feverish blood to the surface where it can cool and draws out the cause of the illness. Every market has its own natural medicine clinic. Enormous dried mushrooms, snakes, seahorses, seeds, roots, flowers. Each remedy is used to cure a specific illness. Traditional treatments are quite effective for those who are patient enough to undergo a long period of treatment. Often, the mere belief in the curative powers of these substances is as effective as the most modern antibiotics. Traditional homes on the Mekong Delta have an exit onto the river. There is also an area for growing fruits and vegetables for the family's private consumption. These products, together with rice and fish, make up the basic diet. Vietnamese cooking is not as popular as Chinese or Japanese cuisine, but it is beginning to be recognized internationally. All recipes feature rice seasoned with a variety of spices like cilantro, ginger, and pepper, resulting in surprisingly extraordinary flavors. Among the most famous dishes are imperial rolls, a rice paper wrap containing vegetables, meat, fish, or seafood, and fried in a generous amount of oil until crunchy golden brown. The most popular game in Vietnam is called Shan Ki. Also known as Chinese chess, it is a variation on the game played throughout the world. The original version was introduced to European society by the Arabs. The Vietnamese are profoundly religious. Spirituality informs all of their daily activities. Family property is blessed, and there are small altars in each home where offerings can be made. Religious practices are quite eclectic. It might even be said that every family has its own religion. Temples are used for public ceremonies and feature a mixture of statues that are considered sacred by the majority of the population. But in the same city, in the same neighborhood, two temples standing side by side could easily contain religious imagery that is completely different. Is a city from another era that has entered the 21st century without leaving tradition behind. Noisy motorcycles, tourists, and the presence of Western products cannot eclipse the Vietnam of old. Establishments like this one can be found on any street. It is clear how important it is to honor one's ancestors here, to worship the dead. Each of these brightly colored objects symbolizes a good quality. They are burned on the tombs of the dead. Paper money, for example, is used so that the fallen might enjoy the great beyond in a way that was impossible on Earth. Temples reflect the cultural diversity of religious practice in Vietnam, serving as social, political, and religious centers. The majority of the population is Buddhist, but there are also Taoists, Confucianists, Hindus, and followers of beliefs which bring together elements of all four philosophies with traditional ancestral religions. One of these religions is Cao Dai, a sect that was founded in the 19th century by a civil servant named Ngo Van Thieu. In keeping with his belief that all religions are worthy of respect, Cao Dai altars incorporate elements from all belief systems, together with a photo of this unexpected prophet. Buddhism has been practiced throughout the Mekong Valley for 2,000 years. In northern Vietnam, the dominant branch is Mahayana. And near the Mekong, the Theravada doctrine originally from India is followed. If there is one spot in the entire Mekong Delta where Buddhism can be discovered, it would have to be the city of Luang Prabang, the ancient capital of Laos, home to more than 50 temples. The most famous of these is Wat Hien Tong, the Temple of the Golden City, which was built by King Siddhartha in 1560. This Asian architectural gem is noted for its glass mosaics and its gilded facades. Inside the temples, the canticles of monks, brilliant gilded statues, and faint candlelight create the same magical energy that has been here for centuries. In Vietnam, it is difficult to tell the difference between religion, mythology, and history. Most of the population has always been illiterate, and important information is passed down from generation to generation by word of mouth. Behind the curtain of this ancient theater, water puppets are being prepared for one of the many shows that has been used to record these old legends as collective imagery. The puppets are mounted on complex mobile bases, which are worked using metal rods hidden beneath the water's surface. All of the pieces are handmade. The puppets are painted by hand and dressed in costumes that are made to measure. As the show begins, the youngest spectators are caught up in the brusque movements of the wooden dancers, the triumphs of the good characters, and the wickedness of the bad ones. Today, there is a television in every home, and no one is surprised by objects that move on their own. But several decades ago, puppeteers became famous for their ability to make it seem like the puppets were coming to life. Even so, when the story's hero conquers the tiger and frees his village, young and old alike are wrapped up once again in a story as old as Vietnam itself. Near the Chinese border, northern Vietnam is a mountainous zone where humidity and tropical temperatures drop. Inhabitants of this area belong to 60 different ethnic groups, but they are all commonly referred to as mountain people or members of hill tribes. These communities remained hidden until fairly recently, when Vietnam opened its doors to tourism. Since then, members of these villages have been earning dollars for doing exactly what they've always done: living peacefully in the mountains. Cat Ba Island is located near the northern coast on the South China Sea. This is one of the country's biggest tourist attractions. Bobbing alongside the boats in the port is a floating city. Economic difficulties are forcing fishermen and traders to live in small wooden houses which are built on platforms floating atop plastic drums. The old fisherman's port of Cat Ba is located on the other side of the highway bridge. This mishmash of tiny houses, invisible from the windows of tourist hotels, has the flavor of an ancient coastal village. All of the side streets are used as a market where every person is trying to sell every belonging he has. The stalls sell fish, candy, and prepared foods, while the houses serve as beauty salons, carpentry workshops, and fishing net repair shops. The smell of fish and soybean oil intermingles with the odor of tar, taking us to another area of the village where basket boats are built. These small rowboats pack the entire bay. The hulls are made of one solid piece and are made in China. Here, they are waterproofed with tar. Their seats are also installed, as well as oar locks and hooks for attaching the top. These nutshells with oars are the most popular form of transportation in Cat Ba, and they constantly move from one large boat to another. The next stop for travelers is one of the loveliest and surprising spots in Asia. Geography and history of a country which is beyond their reach. They were born on the sea, and very few of them will be lucky enough to change their circumstances. Everyone here is a fisherman. The most fortunate people have their own boats that they take out to the bay's fishing grounds. Everyone else raises fish beneath the wooden planks and plastic jugs their houses are built on. Each family has its own net fishing enclosures where young fish of various species are stocked. As the fish grow, they are moved to other enclosures until they are big enough to eat. There are also entertainment areas in this floating village. In a place where everything rocks to the rhythm of the tides, a pool table might not be the obvious choice, but players don't seem to mind the movement. Houses here don't differ much from the homes in a normal village. But inside, all you have to do is lift up a floorboard to find a sink or a toilet. Fish and seafood make up a large part of the local diet. Ships loaded with drinking water arrive daily. Rice and vegetables come from markets in the city of Haiphong, located more than 2 hours away. There is an altar in every home, filled with strange objects of worship. Most people are Buddhists, but the intensity of traditional ancestor worship can also be felt. Before going out to fish, families gather around the table. No one seems to mind the swaying floor underfoot. Most of them have always lived on the sea, and many even feel queasy on solid ground. At sunset, the boats go out to fish. Currents run between the small islands, drawing in great schools of fish. Boat captains know the bay well and are able to seek out the best fishing grounds. Crossing these waters sweeps us back to another era, when, according to legend, these islands were created by dragons hurling large rocks at the enemies of the Jade Emperor. Out there where man can tread, a small shrine has been built by groups of fishermen who have survived storms or shaken off pirates in the labyrinth of islands. The descendants of those fishermen burn incense before a statue of Buddha, asking for his protection. There are no pirates anymore, but perhaps the great beyond will help ease the precarious nature of a life lived on water. Once at the fishing grounds, preparations begin for a long night of work. When night has completely fallen, the small boat switches on its strong lights. The first step is to cast several fishing lines with tiny pieces that serve as bait. The fishermen spend most of the night keeping an eye on the black waters, waiting for the biggest possible catch. When they see their opportunity, they cast their nets, knowing that Buddha will send them all the luck they need. The sun rises and everything starts anew. Whether in Halong Bay, in the Delta, or on the river, each day a new page of Vietnam's history is written. Dragons carve islands out of jade, and shopkeepers build markets.